Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a somatic therapist as well as a personal trainer, Kundalini yoga teacher, sort of the health profession's jack of all trades. If you'd like to find out a little more about what I do, you can go ahead and check out my link, or rather my website, which is posted down below this video. So today, what we're going to be looking at is Mula Nakshatra. So Mula Nakshatra is the 19th, I believe, Nakshatra in the series that I'm doing on Kundalini Yoga as it relates to the Vedic lunar mansions. So Mula is pretty interesting. Oh, one other thing I should say before I get into this. So the nakshatra is basically, you can have a nakshatra representing each one of your planets in your natal chart, your birth chart. So meaning your moon, your ascendant, and your sun are probably the most prominent placements, but this could also apply to your Saturn, your Venus, etc., etc. So what I suggest is finding the generalized theme, in this case with Mula Nakshatra, and sort of applying it to the generalized themes of the planets. So for instance, if it is indeed the moon, that represents your mind and sort of your emotions internally. Externally, how it's expressed, or how we end up expressing in life from our soul's expression outward, is more represented by your sun. But in terms of your inner experience, that would be your moon. So again, you can kind of apply these energies in a similar way like that. So Mula, getting to the actual nakshatra itself, if we look at the Gunas, it says a lot. The positive manifestation of this particular nakshatra is essentially fulfilling karma in a lot of ways, but it's also the very beginning of the spiritualization process in the zodiac. This is the first nakshatra within Sagittarius, and what I mean by the beginning of the spiritualization process, so typically Scorpio, which is represented by transformation and death, well, with every death, there's the implication of something new coming after. So Mula is sort of the early birth energy of the spiritualization process that continues for the remaining third of the zodiac, meaning Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So all the nakshatras within there, their primary, again, the underlining ebb, the underlining impulse is the spiritualization process. So the primary impulse for this, which relates to that deep sattvic energy, which represents the sort of life path or the overall, like I said, ebb, what it is basically is the urge for liberation. So the urge for liberation in this particular case is, well, it's interesting to watch how this nakshatra kind of plays out. I mean, I'm reflecting on my own path. This is my ascendant, and I'm also reflecting on a few people I know who had this as their moon. So this energy, it can initially, because this is what they call a kama path. So kama means the fulfillment of one's desires. And in this case with Mula, it's the sensate desires. It's the passions that get aroused by the senses. So these folks, particularly early on in their process, are moving towards, things that they desire. It could be material things, or it could be, whatever it is. But now the issue is that once these folks attain those things that their passions led them towards, they sometimes get a slap in the face. And this slap in the face can come in a number of different ways, but mainly it comes in the form of mental and emotional unstableness. That's not the word. Discord. So mental and emotional discomfort, discord, dis-ease, however you want to look at it. So now the reason this is happening is because what we have here is a rulership, which is Ketu. So the upper two gunas, which are both Rajasic, and again, what Rajasic means is a positive, proactive energy. But it's the energy for attachment. It wants to go after things and to attach to things. So when I say positive, I'm not talking about it in that sort of woo-woo new age kind of sense of, oh, be positive and love and light and that kind of thing. Although that can be seen with this particular vibe. However, what we're actually talking about here is the attachment to material things. And again, the attachment to the senses. Now, the interesting thing about Ketu, though, as being the ruler of this particular sign, is that Ketu is kind of an automatic energy. I remember reading one astrologer's representation of Ketu. He says, don't even look at it. He makes the comment that Ketu is kind of functioning on autopilot. And what I think he was alluding to when he said that was that Ketu, in the mythology, is the body without a head. Rahu, or the north node, and again, Ketu is the south node. In Western astrology, Ketu is the south node. But Rahu represents the head without a body. So Rahu generally is the materialization principle. It's the obsessiveness of the ego, of the personality. And Rahu is trying to materialize you. Ketu, on the other hand, is without the head, meaning what we're talking about here is a deeper vibe. There's a deeper subconscious vibe that needs to be heated here. And so the subconscious, you can think about it like the subconscious expresses itself whether you like it or not. And that's the beauty of the subconscious. Now, how much trickles to the surface and ends up being projected out? Well, that's a different question. So these folks, at least early on in their process, like I said, they end up projecting out a lot of shit. This is a very karmic path. Ketu, again, represents, on some levels, our karma, the things we come into this lifetime to sort of work out, to things that we come into this lifetime to kind of manifest. So these folks, high enthusiasm, very excitable people. Again, a lot of Rajasic energy here. Everyone I've known has this particular placement, woo, intense energy, a lot of energy. Again, high enthusiasm, high excitement. Now, what are they excited by, though? That's the interesting thing. So once they move towards those material things, something, like I said, always hits them, and it's usually some sort of circumstance. I mean, again, this is very automatic energy, so what ends up happening is they get slapped by something, some event, some occurrence, some realization, something that shakes them out of their material hypnosis, out of their hypnosis into the pleasurable things. And what ends up slapping them, usually, like I said, it could be an event or a number of things, but usually what it does is that it gets them to turn their energy inward and move towards introspection. Again, the deep vibe on these folks, their whole life, ultimately their life path is about this liberation. It's about this seeking what's spiritually fulfilling. So what we end up seeing is this conversion from the animal into the spiritual. So it's the animal needs that end up being sort of cast aside for spiritual preferences and things that we prefer spiritually. So the god associated with Mula, Nirita, I probably mispronounced that, I'm sorry, but generically Nirita is the goddess of destruction. So it's a demon. This is demonic energy. I don't mean you're supposed to read into this and think it's like, oh, it's like Satan or something like that. It's demonic energy in that, and again, you have to keep in mind here, keep this in perspective. I know people who've got Mula go, oh God, no, I've got Mula energy. And it's the same with on the other side of the zodiac with Ardra Nakshatra, which lies in Gemini. You get people get freaked out when they have that energy as well because of just a lot of negative references. However, again, keeping in mind that these folks have a lot of energy and they're moving towards spiritual things. So the energy, and again, Sagittarius is governed by Jupiter, and these folks on a deep level, sort of on the sort of attitudinal level, it's also very Jupiter-like. Sattvic base, Rajasic energy as being what's expressed. So from clarity, how this clarity is achieved is Rajasically. So they end up having to move towards a whole lot of things, to attach to a whole lot of things in order to understand that those things are not satisfying. So once they have that realization, again, through pain, fear, and suffering, the goddess of destruction. So what they end up destroying are the baser needs, the animal needs. The animal needs they realize, this isn't satisfying to me. This isn't working for me. These folks, like I said, on a lot of levels, they tend to be associated with roots. And roots are interesting because when I think about this idea of a sign whose symbol is a bundle of roots, it gets me thinking about. So I had a girlfriend once who accused me of being a reductionist, which is true. Now, reductionism, I don't know is necessarily the best word for these folks, but they're here to get to the bottom of things. And so what you see with this particular placement are like really good researchers, let's say, and minimalists and researchers and people who, again, if they've moved into their spiritualization process, they're going to get to the root of what that spiritualization process is. I don't see these folks they can, again, when immature, they can buy into sort of like religious or spiritual trends and can be misguided. So they have to cut through all these layers. This doesn't work, that doesn't work, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And again, it's a lot of trial and error process. Ketu, this karmic energy, is functioning on autopilot. They're kind of slamming into things. Trust me, slamming into things is a good way to put it. Again, all this enthusiastic vibe, what's being expressed outward, again, on the tertiary level, we've got Rajasic energy that's being expressed outward. That Rajasic energy, like I said early on, initially wants to attach to material things, but eventually, again, on the tertiary level, this water level of what's flowing out into the world, what's outwardly being expressed, eventually has to come into alignment with the deeper vibes. Now, the deeper vibes, again, that sort of sattvic base and Rajasic energy, or the sort of Jupiterian expansiveness here. So expansive energy on autopilot, when misguided, brings one to destructive tendencies. And so these folks have all sorts of, like I said, horrible references, like they get called butchers, in a lot of astrology books. But again, just keep in mind that this is infantile spiritualization energy. And these folks are going to get to the root of it. They're going to get to the bottom of it and find that sort of spiritualized process. So the problem is along the way, in terms of material prosperity, that will be denied to them potentially. However, I've read other books that actually say these folks actually do pretty well in terms of material prosperity, but I'm going to go with the sort of more conventional explanation here, which is the denial of prosperity or abundance, material abundance, is ultimately one of those things that will steer somebody along a spiritual path, because you try to seek out things that are actually more gratifying. So if we look at the padas, or the divisions within this particular nakshatra, there are 4 divisions in all the nakshatras, and generally there's planetary representations of each one of these 4 sections. In this case, we've got Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Moon. All these are mental, emotional planets. So meaning that the energies that are affecting this nakshatra are largely mental and emotional. So that's what's stirring them up. That's what's disturbing them. Usually there's some sort of, and again, a lot of Rajasic energy here. The pivot point and how they're achieving everything is this Rajasic energy, this proactive, positive, enthusiastic, bombastic, driven, high-minded energy. And they have to slow down, though. So you're going to see people that are very attracted to meditation. And the thing, before I got sidetracked there, these padas, these personal planets that are mental and emotional, these are quick changing planets. So these folks can change quickly, can change very quickly. Their evolutionary path can happen in very drastic, intense ways. They could get material resources and then it gets all taken away really quickly and drastically. So, again, this whole progression As it matures, though, like I said, they become very Jupiterian in nature and very expansive, very high-minded, very positive people who are able to achieve their spiritual goals of meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi, whatever it is that draws them, because they're seeking. This is what it always boils down to. Early in life, they thought they were seeking material things. Later in life, the realization here is it's not material things they're seeking. It's not material things they desire. So they end up seeking technique. They end up seeking, spiritual technique. They end up seeking meditation. They end up seeking those things that bring them a sense of balance and stability to what is otherwise an emotionally volatile and mentally volatile human being. So hopefully you guys get the point of Mula. And again, keep in mind there's several nakshatras that tend to get really like negative raps. And none of the nakshatras are inherently like a death sentence. What's important here to remember is again, it's always, all the nakshatras are about spiritualizing. And whether or not, like with Mula, they're being spiritualized through pain. And that's why there's always these references to the goddess of destruction and teardrops. Like in Ardra, it's teardrops on the other side of the zodiac. Vishaka is another one that tends to get a lot of negativity about it. In this case, like another symbol that's associated with these folks is the elephant's goad. Elephant is this very representation of the human body on some level in this context. And the elephant is this big noble creature. But the goad, this little shocker, stabber, poker thing, what it does is it creates pain in order to guide the elephant to where you want it to go. But the elephant's very powerful. So keep that in mind. This is a very powerful, intense placement. So be wise. Be wise and utilize your energies for good. With all that said, I'm going to go ahead and show you now how I made the associations with Mula Nakshatra and Projection 17, which is called the Enthusiast, from Yogi Bhajan's book, The Mind. All right, so here is Yogi Bhajan's book, The Mind. Great book, by the way. Mine looks really nasty. So, in Yogi Bhajan's book, The Mind, what we have here is a flowchart at the very back, and this is a wonderful chart, particularly for those of us who are very much Mula Nakshatra type natives, in that we want to find out the root and the point of things. And so the root and the point of things, at least within the human experience, is the universal mind, Chitta. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the flowchart here, and we're going to find out which of the exercises or meditations apply to Mula Nakshatra. So Mula is, at its base, sattvic, which is buddhi. And you can see it says it discerns, it judges what is real and destined. So then we follow buddhi to positive mind, because again, these folks are operating through the positive mind, which takes us over to this missionary, quote-unquote missionary energy, which is, it's sort of like, again, the missionary energy is sort of like Jupiter. So again, it's sattvic at its base, and activity as how it's fulfilling that sattvic charge. And then we go to additional positive energy. So it's sattvic, positive, positive. And we've got pursuing the cycle of artistic attributes, the enthusiast. All right, so what we do now is we go to the projection, sorry about that, Projection 17. Here we are, Projection 17, the enthusiast. There's a little blah, blah, blah. I do like what it says here about imbalance. It says, in balance, people in the cosmos feel your dedication like a burning flame. Your enthusiasm inflames and enlists the resources needed to reach your goal. And the exercise. You're going to be hitting your ribs with this one, the seventh rib. And I'll go into why you're doing that in a moment. So this exercise is done for 11 minutes, and yeah, you can do it shorter or longer, and I'll go into that in a moment. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do projection 17, the enthusiast. So the first thing you're going to notice about this nakshatra is that this particular meditation associated with Mula Nakshatra is that you're going to be striking your ribs. Now, there's a couple reasons that I believe that Yogi Bhajan chose this exercise for this particular placement. One, Rajasic energy. It's a lot of movement. So a lot of movement what it can do is it can increase the movement of the diaphragm as well. If the diaphragm is moving quickly, the emotions and the energies of the body, which are sometimes felt as anxiety, can then also move a great deal, which causes the mind then to move a great deal. So again, the emotions in the body, if they're moving quickly, they also accelerate the motion of the mind. Everything is interconnected. So the striking of the ribs, the best that I can really ascertain for two purposes. One, there's almost like what they call like a yogic knot. And there's references, I believe, in the Bible to like a seventh rib, etc., etc. So the rib cage is this division point between the more base energies of the chakras that lie below it. So we're talking about security needs, sex needs, food, etc., etc., as well as your doing. So the doing, the actions in one's life are in the gut. This is the energy to do. So the energy to do has to come into a union with our navigation. So you think about all the times they say, oh, follow your heart. And, it's true. In yoga, they'll say you lead with your heart. So again, very true. However, that's assuming you can actually tune into your heart. So if you're rajasically and, too much activity, et cetera, if you're being busy and hyper proactive in life, you don't slow down quick enough to actually say, hey, what are my instincts? What is my intuition leading me towards? So what this exercise does is it coordinates your will center with your guidance. The other thing that's interesting is I saw a product a while back that was for dogs, actually. What it was like a girdle that you wrapped around your dog to place pressure on the rib cage. And this was supposedly to help him lessen anxiety. So again, it's this idea of creating compression or impacting the rib cage. Because what we end up doing is there's little muscles called the intercostals that will end up relaxing to some degree with this particular exercise. And so at the end, what we're going to do is full deep breaths, which allows for expansion of the rib cage, and then full exhales, which allows for contraction of the rib cage. So I'm going to go ahead and I think that's all I really need to mention in terms of the background of why this exercise is chosen. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate it for you. The sound har, which is the mantra for this exercise, it's just done repetitively. Har, 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 har. There's no pauses for breath. Now, har is a sound. It can mean God, it can mean several things. But what we're doing here is we're pulling in the belt line while making the sound har. And the R on the end rolls a bit. Now what this does is it creates a connection between your navel point and the tongue. And har is essentially a forceful exhale. So it's navel point to tongue. So, and like I said, the tongue will, if you roll the R correctly, it will strike the upper palate of the mouth. And again, we got a lot going on here, right? A lot of activity, see? So what Yogi Bhajan did for this energy that's extremely active is he gave you a very active exercise. And this is how a lot of people who have a lot of nervous energy can kind of settle down as you do a bunch of activities, and then that'll bring the mind, well, that'll dissipate a lot of the nervous energy, which will bring the mind to a more still place. So let me go ahead and show you how this looks. So the hands are simply palms up, and you're going to hold them close to the sides of your body. And what we're doing is we're basically creating this rotation, this movement. The circles are, quote unquote, about 12 inches in diameter. So once we get the motion going, again, about approximately 12-inch circles, we're going to add the sound har. And again, I do suggest pulling in your navel point, which is about approximately your belt line, with each recitation of this sound. And the eyes are not specified for this exercise, so what I suggest is keeping the eyes closed and slightly rolled upward towards your brow point and slightly inward towards the center of the head. So that's where you want to place your concentration. So, or I guess the other option would be bringing the eyes to the tip of the nose. So here we go. Hard, 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 hard. And then to finish, inhale, retain the breath. So think about retaining for about 10, 20 seconds. Exhale, retain out. All the air is out. Again, 10, 20 seconds. And you repeat this 3 times. Inhaling, retaining, exhaling, retaining out, inhale, retain, exhale, retain out. So after 3 times, inhale, exhale, and relax. And, give yourself some meditation time after. Like all these exercises, it's always helpful to meditate after for at least 5 minutes. So, one final thing. Do this exercise for at least 3 minutes, up to 11 minutes. I don't see anyone really doing this for any more than 11 minutes, but feel free to do it for 31 minutes if you wish. So with all that said, hopefully you enjoyed this exercise in this video, and thank you for watching.